Actually, I was at a business-to-business networking event and with a little piece of paper in my back pocket with a picture of what iTeddy could look like. And this was very early on. It was literally probably a few days after I'd initially come up with the idea. And I remember there was a girl scouting from the BBC for people with ideas as potential victims on the show. And one of my friends said, well, why don't you pitch that Teddy idea that you have? I didn't really know much about it, and I asked the lady how long I had to talk for. She said, well, you have to talk for at least 3 minutes. I didn't think I could talk about this for 3 minutes. 8 minutes later, she had to drag me off because I was still rambling on about all the wonderful things you could do. And they liked the idea. So when you've got a prototype, bring it back to us, and let's put it in front of the dragons. So as soon as we brought that to the den, Peter Jones and Theo Paphitis loved the idea. We did a deal. And it's been a hell of a roller coaster ride since then. Initially, in the first few months, we did a deal with Argos, being UK's biggest toy retailer, and it was one of the best-selling toys in 2007. We then did a distribution deal with UK's biggest toy company called Vivid Imaginations, which resulted in us exhibiting around the world and gaining distribution in 45 countries around the world, from places like Russia to China to Hong Kong, the States, Middle East. And that's the great thing about iTeddy. A bear is a bear in Russia, as it is in France, as it is in the UK. When you're manufacturing over in the Far East, you find that you're dealing with multiple suppliers, you're dealing with currency fluctuation, you're dealing with movement in commodity prices, quality control, especially with a product that is meant for a child. It's all these issues, and when you're dealing with a one-man band at the time, because it was still very early concept, and trying to cover all that in an industry which you're not familiar with, you can imagine the challenges, but luckily, one after another, we knocked each of the challenges down and delivered on the vision. One of the components within iTeddy that's a commodity is the memory. So iTeddy comes with built-in memory, and the cost price of that memory fluctuates from day to day. It's called a spot price. Now, when we started, we were monitoring the trend of the spot price of flash memory in the marketplace in China. And the trend was that it was a downward curve. So the automatic thought process was wait as long as you can to place the order for the production for that year. 3 weeks before we were about to press the button on production, if you think back, Apple announced the launch of iPhone, and as a result said they were going to take in 25% of China's production of flash memory, which meant that it sent the cost of flash memory upwards. Every day that we could not react and send the money over to buy the flash memory, we were losing $100,000. I think at the moment we are going through unprecedented times, and there's a lot of business models out there that people have historically enjoyed good profitability with that need redefining, fine-tuning, whatever it may be, in light of the global economy, currency fluctuations, the demographic of the supply chain changing. And I think one of the most important things for entrepreneurs, people often say, never give up. And I think what's more appropriate is to say, know when to give up, because I think too often entrepreneurs can become very sentimental and emotionally attached to their business or to their ideas, even when they've realized that there is no end game or it's become a futile exercise. Because they are sentimental or emotional, they can't walk away from it. And you need to know when to walk away from a business or a concept or an idea until it's too late. Otherwise, that will be very expensive and emotionally very traumatic as well. I try to separate my head from my heart in business, and if we realize that a certain part of business is a business model which is now outdated or defunct, then we walk away and we try and push our energy and resource into another part of the business or into another opportunity that we've identified. And one of the points that we spent quite a lot of time on was surrounding trademarks and patents, intellectual property. Now, I can recall that Deborah and Richard both loved the idea, but said that they felt that we wouldn't get the necessary protection, and so they were out. As you know, trademarks and patents take time to be granted. There's a process that you have to go through. We sought professional advice from patent attorneys, and we had sound information to start our patent and trademark process. But because it was very early stage of development, we hadn't got to a stage where it was granted yet. It was in the process. Whilst it was in process, though, we got it to retail market, and there is a very, very important lesson in there. Deborah and Richard didn't invest, Peter and Theo did. Having a patent or a trademark isn't a prerequisite to business success. And too often, especially in various businesses that I'm involved with where I've invested, you find that entrepreneurs get very hung up about protecting everything that they can try and protect. Don't get me wrong, it is extremely important to try and patent and trademark any part of your business IP that you think you can. However, it should not stop you from continuing if you feel that you have got enough market momentum. I think it's important to trademark and patent what you can. Make sure you've done the necessary searches to make yourself comfortable before you embark upon a patenting and trademarking process. But thereafter, don't give up if you feel that it's going to take time. Continue with your development, especially if you can look at the marketplace and see that there's nothing like it. If you identify a way of a requirement for this product or service in the marketplace, don't let patents and trademarks or the existence of patents and trademarks stop you from still pursuing that vision. The first thing I did, I'd read every single market research report I could to try and make myself understand what was going on in that industry. What I wasn't aware of is that a lot of the selling that happens for instance, for Christmas '09, a lot of the selling would happen in January '09 over in Hong Kong for all the big buyers. Now, when we started with iTeddy, we were in April, May, and we didn't even have a final product yet. So people said to me, it's impossible, you can't do it. But because I didn't know that that was the case, I just thought it was normal, and I slept in the factories for weeks on end because I was so determined that I was going to get this to the retail channel, and I was going to deliver, and that little hands up and down the country were going to be playing with this on Christmas Day. I had that vision in my head, and I was confident that if we put in the time and the energy and the work, it would happen. And lo and behold, there were so many challenges, but we delivered. For retailers, for distributors, the important thing is to make sure you're not infringing upon somebody else's patent or trademark. So whilst you might not have yours granted yet, and that can take a little bit of time, the bit that you have to make sure you're safe with is that somebody else hasn't got a patent or trademark that you could be infringing upon. And that can be done relatively quickly, relatively cheaply through patent searches and trademark searches. And as long as you've got that comfort, and you can give that same comfort to the retailers and the distributors, then that should be enough whilst your patent's pending. And you'll often see in packaging on various items that it says patent pending. That should give you enough comfort to get your product into the retail channel.